Tommy Not So Young Guns Almeida versus Sugar Shane O'Malley. Yep, that's the one we got coming up, boys and girls, ladies and gents. Sugar Shane versus Tommy Guns. So basically, when it comes down to it, we're looking at a bad knee, bad ankle, bad foot. Really, it's like a high ankle sprain, I think Sugar Shane had relatively recently and ongoing and reoccurring. And Tommy's not so great chin. So if you really look at things, when you look at Tommy Guns, he was, the up-and-coming, soon-to-be UFC champ. And he ran into our boy, Cody Garbrandt. That's right, Cody Angry Garbrandt, and got knocked out. And, he's had his ups, his downs, his highs, his lows. Some good wins, some bad wins after that, but he's never really been able to get back on the train. And what Cody really exposed was that Tommy's chin's not that great. He's got all the experience in the world. He came in with, 20 some odd fights, a Muay Thai champ, pretty good jiu-jitsu, decent wrestling. He had everything he needed to be the champ in that division when he first showed up, and he probably would have had the next title shot if he'd been able to get through Cody Garbrandt, which obviously he didn't. Obviously, Cody became the UFC champ, soon to lose it against Mr. EPO. But that's another story for another time, ladies and gents, boys and girls. When we're looking at this fight, though, we're looking at Sugar Shane O'Malley. And Sugar's very explosive. He's a very organic fighter, very dynamic. He's got a lot of good skills. I'm not too high on his wrestling, but I think his jiu-jitsu is pretty decent, and his striking is amazing. Top 20, top 30 in the UFC, which, considering they've got 300 fighters, that puts him in the top 10%. So we're really talking about, skill-wise, it's interesting. Tommy Guns has the most experience. He's got more experience than most fighters in the UFC, to be completely honest. And we're looking at something, in my opinion, more of a road striker. So you've got the organic striker versus the road striker. I tend to believe that Thomas Almeida's fundamentals are probably a little more sound, a little more, ingrained into his soul. When you look at him fight, it's very orthodox. It's very rote, which rote is not a bad thing. Rote just means that he has a series of combinations that are ingrained into him through training, through time. He's going to go for the jab cross hook. He's going to move his head left. He's going to move his head right. Then he's going to throw a cross hook cross. He's got these set patterns that he's going to follow. Frankie Edgar's a fighter like that. And then you got Sugar Shane. Sugar, he's an on-the-fly guy. He's an organic striker. He ad-libs. He picks his shots. And, he improvises. Now, that being said, that's a good thing. It can be a bad thing. It can be a good thing because he sees openings, he sees opportunities, and he pounces on it. It can be a bad thing because he thinks too much. He's thinking about what he should do, when he should do it, where he should do it. Whereas the road striker doesn't have to think about when he should, where he should. It's very much, sometimes they just even throw the patterns that their coaches scream from the corner. But, they're not as apt. Doesn't mean they can't, but they're just not as apt to see these openings. That being said, Tommy Guns, before, he got knocked out by Cody, he was a finisher. He's still a finisher. If he's winning, he's a finisher. And so is Sugar. They're both finishers, so they know how to win. They know what to look for. They know what they're doing. They're both really good fighters. You also have to look at, I think, even with Sugar's last loss, I think he's more on the upswing. Tommy, I think he's on a 3, maybe a 4-fight slide. And by slide, I mean losses. He might have lost 3 and won 1 somewhere in between there, and then he had another loss. It's not great. It's not, it's hard. It's hard for a fighter. They start a pattern of losing. Not that they're necessarily doing something wrong. Maybe there's just a lot of footage out there on them. Maybe, they started to fade a little bit. Or maybe they're just having bad luck. Maybe they're in a bad place with, family or girlfriend or wife, kids. The outside world, it does start to weigh on you. Sugar, on the other hand, it was an injury, which the bad part of the injury that got him his last loss is that that injury possibly reoccurring. We've seen that injury in Sugar Shane before. Means that, either maybe he's pushing himself too hard, he's not recovering, not going through those recovery modalities. So we've got 2 fighters with compromised bodies. I mean, that's what you're really looking at when you're looking at this fight. I mean, great strikers, great MMA fighters. But when you break this down, Sugar, he got injured. So even though he got a loss, even though he got a little hurt in his last fight, he can rack that up in his mind. He can put that away and be like, oh, I could have won that fight. I would have beat this guy. I would have found a way if only, I didn't get that ankle injury, calf injury / foot injury. If that hadn't happened, I'd have found a way to win and I'd have been able to do it. With Tommy Guns, it's a little harder for him to put that away. He's got to look at this thing and either find a new path, do something different, because he's on a bit of a slide. It's a reoccurring issue. It's not one where he lost and he found his way back and now he's winning and now he's on the up. I mean, this is a do or die situation for Tommy Guns, who not too long ago had a pretty bright future in the UFC. So we got one fighter on the upswing. Even with this last loss, I feel like Mr. O'Malley's going to be able to put that in the back of his mind and break it down to, outside influences having, affected his performance. Whereas Mr. Guns, Tommy Guns, Thomas Almeida, I don't think he's going to be able to really compartmentalize that issue. I don't think he's going to be able to put those losses away in the box. He's going to have to really face those losses, make some changes, really find a way. It's a tall mountain to climb. It's a big pill to swallow. It's a lot for any fighter in any situation to really do. I mean, all Sean O'Malley needs to do is come into that fight, healthy in body, healthy in mind. It's not, and really be able to put his hands on Mr. Almeida's chin, which that's really the path for victory. When I'm looking at this for Mr. Sugar Shane, is he needs to be able to put his feet, his knees, his hands, his elbows on Mr. Almeida's chin, because we know it's a little suspect. So when I look at this, I'm believing that Sugar's ankle, calf, foot, whatever the actual injury turned out to be, is going to be more stable than Mr. Almeida's chin. That chin has been suspect. That chin has been, wonky. It's been, unreliable for a long period of time. And I don't think that it's going to become a lot more reliable in the next, near future by UFC 260. So I think I put the cats out of the bag. I think the dog's out of the yard. You guys have figured it out. I'm going with Mr. O'Malley, Mr. Sugar Shane, Mr. Funky Hairdo, Mr. Arizona, Mr. The man, the guy. He trains out in Arizona. Good wrestling out there, which makes me believe that Mr. Almeida is not going to be able to take him down. So that's where I'm at. My money's on Sugar Shane. My money's on Mr. O'Malley, Sideshow Bob, the guy, the man. And I wish the best of luck to Mr. Almeida. It's up to him to prove us all wrong, to, find a way to win, to make those changes in his camp, and I just don't think he is. Ladies and gentlemen, that's your best bet. Like, subscribe, holla at your boy. Shoot me a line. Let me know what you think. Read those comments. You guys have a great day. Bye.